We often believe that human history is a journey of constant, unbroken progress. A steady, gradual climb from primitive bands of hunter-gatherers to modern, highly advanced technological empires. But what if the true story of humanity is far more complex and terrifying? What if some ancient civilizations reached levels of organizational and engineering development far beyond what we ever imagined? Massive, impossible structures that completely defy the passage of time. Intricately planned, sprawling cities that rival modern urban planning. And incredibly powerful empires that once dominated vast, resource-rich regions of the prehistoric world. Yet, despite their brilliance, all of them eventually collapsed in the blink of an eye. They vanished almost entirely, leaving behind fragmented ruins and haunting questions that remain unanswered to this very day. Let us pull back the veil of deep time and explore the lost civilizations that were violently erased by nature. Our first journey takes us back more than 13,000 years to the freezing, unforgiving landscapes of Ice Age North America. A pristine, prehistoric wilderness completely dominated by some of the largest terrestrial mammals to ever walk the Earth. Here, we find a civilization that has sparked intense, ongoing debate among archaeologists for nearly a century. They are known to modern science as the Clovis culture. What makes the Clovis people so incredibly shocking is not what they built, but what they did not build. They left behind absolutely no massive stone pyramids, no towering palaces, and no magnificent golden cities like those of Egypt. The only surviving remnants of their once widespread dominance are seemingly simple, meticulously crafted stone spear points. Yet, those very spear points are fundamentally challenging the way we understand the technological capabilities of humanity's past. Around 13,200 years ago, during the violently fluctuating final stages of the Pleistocene Ice Age, Clovis groups appeared almost simultaneously and expanded explosively across the vast North American continent, from the arid deserts of New Mexico, Texas, and Arizona all the way to the freezing northeastern United States. Archaeologists have repeatedly uncovered the exact same distinctive, highly specialized killing tool in multiple geological strata. These incredibly lethal, beautifully crafted stone weapons are known as the legendary Clovis points. These razor-sharp spear points were not merely primitive tools. They were highly advanced biological weapons, crafted using an extraordinarily sophisticated, highly calculated stone knapping technique that required years of intense physical mastery. What is truly remarkable is that the long, concave grooves carved deeply into the base of the shaft area were created with exceptional, almost mathematical precision by these ancient weaponsmiths. This crucial aerodynamic design allowed the heavy spear shaft to be secured much more effectively, dramatically increasing its absolute penetrating power during highly dangerous, close-quarters hunts against massive prey. Because of this extreme technological advantage, the Clovis people became the most accomplished megafauna hunters ever known. Fossilized remains of colossal woolly mammoths, aggressive ancient camels, and incredibly massive giant bison are frequently found directly alongside deeply embedded Clovis spear points. This strongly suggests that they built an entire, highly successful culture entirely around hunting the largest, most dangerous creatures on the planet. For hundreds of years, the Clovis culture appears to have flourished and expanded rapidly across the entire North American continent. They were the undisputed apex predators of a freezing, terrifying, and violently competitive Ice Age ecosystem. They had mastered their harsh environment and seemed completely unstoppable in their continental expansion. But then, without any warning, something completely unexpected and globally catastrophic occurred. Around 12,900 years ago, the Earth suddenly entered an unusually brutal freezing period. A devastating planetary climate anomaly that modern paleoclimatologists call the Younger Dryas. Within just a few short decades, ambient temperatures across the entire northern hemisphere dropped dramatically and violently. Warm, stabilizing ocean currents completely shifted their global flow patterns. Climates became exponentially harsher, and many regions that had been slowly warming abruptly returned to deep freezing conditions. This was absolutely not a slow, gradual environmental transformations unfolding gently over thousands of years. Data extracted directly from deep Greenland ice cores strongly indicate that at precisely that geological moment, something highly unusual occurred. At numerous independent archaeological excavation sites scattered widely across the North American continent, researchers discovered a distinct, terrifyingly consistent layer of dark, carbon-rich sediment known scientifically as the black mat. Below this dark geological boundary, Clovis artifacts and massive megafauna fossils are incredibly abundant. Above it, they completely and utterly vanish from the fossil record. These haunting traces led to one of the most intensely controversial and terrifying hypotheses in modern planetary archaeology. What if, around 12,900 years ago, a massive fragmented comet or another large celestial object violently exploded directly over the freezing skies of the North American continent? According to the highly debated Younger Dryas impact hypothesis, such an apocalyptic atmospheric airburst may have instantaneously released thermal energy equivalent to millions of modern nuclear bombs. The sheer, unimaginable heat would have caused massive, mile-thick continental ice sheets to melt suddenly and violently, triggering unimaginable, roaring mega-floods that brutally swept across the open plains where the Clovis people lived and hunted. Simultaneously, apocalyptic, uncontrollable wildfires may have instantly spread across entire continental scales, incinerating vast ancient pine forests and choking the atmosphere with millions of tons of toxic, blocking ash. The entire global climate could have rapidly descended into absolute, freezing chaos. If that catastrophic celestial event truly happened exactly as hypothesized by some researchers, it may have been one of the greatest, most devastating sudden natural disasters that modern humanity has ever known. Many conservative researchers firmly argue that the physical evidence for a cosmic impact remains insufficiently convincing. Yet, if natural climate change alone was the sole responsible factor, why did the incredibly adaptable Clovis culture nearly vanish simultaneously across such an impossibly vast geographical area? If simple food shortages were the only cause of their rapid decline, why did many other primitive human communities manage to easily survive through the exact same freezing period? Today, most leading scientists agree that the brilliant Clovis people did not completely and entirely disappear from the Earth. Their desperate, starving descendants may have slowly merged with other resilient populations and continued to quietly exist through entirely new, heavily modified cultural and technological forms. Yet, this theory still does not adequately explain why a dominant culture that once effortlessly controlled much of North America declined so rapidly and left behind such an incredibly sharp, haunting geological boundary. The tragic story of the Clovis culture fundamentally astonishes us, because it serves as a terrifying reminder of a highly successful civilization that violently vanished amid the unstoppable forces of nature. No matter how advanced their hunting technology was, they could not fight the changing sky. But the Clovis are just the beginning of our deep journey into the forgotten past, because the next lost civilization we will uncover is even harder to believe, and its fate was sealed by the dark, crushing ocean. This time, our investigation descends deep beneath the dark, heavy waves of the Mediterranean Sea, to a place where an enormous, unimaginably wealthy, ancient city simply vanished from the map of the world. A bustling, highly organized maritime metropolis that once housed hundreds of thousands of permanent residents, erased so completely that for nearly 2 entire millennia, it was believed to be nothing more than a myth. This was the legendary Thonis-Heracleion, the magnificent city swallowed whole by the raging sea. For centuries during the height of antiquity, it was arguably one of the most important and lucrative trading centers, connecting the massive wealth of the ancient Egyptian empire directly to the rest of the known world. Wealthy Greek, aggressive Phoenician, and powerful Egyptian merchants constantly passed through its massive, heavily fortified harbors. It was a city of unimaginable luxury, immense architectural scale, and absolute economic dominance. Yet, despite its incredible power, it was not violently destroyed by a conquering army or consumed by war. At its absolute peak, The towering docks of Thonis-Heracleion were endlessly crowded with thousands of massive merchant ships. These enormous wooden vessels were heavily loaded with thousands of tons of golden grain, pure silver, and rare spices. Massive, highly engineered stone canals intricately crisscrossed the entire urban landscape, forming a complex water network. Densely populated, thriving residential districts were systematically built directly alongside enormous, towering stone temples, dedicated to the highest gods of the ancient Egyptian and Greek pantheons, projecting absolute divine power. The legendary Greek historian Herodotus himself specifically described it as Egypt's most critical and heavily guarded maritime gateway. Long before the famous city of Alexandria was even constructed by the Greeks, Thonis-Heracleion was the ultimate, undisputed master of Mediterranean naval trade and international commerce. It served as the mandatory, heavily taxed gateway for all foreign ships before they could legally enter the Egyptian mainland, generating an unimaginable endless river of absolute wealth that fueled the construction of even larger monuments. This was absolutely not a small, primitive fishing settlement desperately clinging to the muddy coast. It was a highly complex, heavily engineered stone metropolis standing proudly against the power of the sea. But over time, despite its massive towering stone walls and seemingly invincible architecture, every single physical trace of this magnificent, bustling city completely and utterly disappeared from human sight. And for thousands of years, no one on Earth knew exactly where it had been located. For many highly respected modern scholars, Thonis-Heracleion was widely believed to be a purely fictional place, a mythological utopia that existed only in the exaggerated poetic texts of ancient Greek and Egyptian storytellers, a legendary Atlantis of the sands forever lost to the brutal, unforgiving passage of deep time. Then, in the year 2000, an underwater discovery completely and fundamentally transformed our understanding of ancient archaeology. The renowned underwater archaeologist Frank Goddio and his highly specialized, technologically advanced research team uncovered massive, terrifyingly huge stone ruins deeply buried beneath the thick, dark mud of Abu Qir Bay. Located just off the northern coast of modern Egypt, only about 8 kilometers away from the current shoreline. Resting silently at a shallow depth of roughly 10 meters beneath the murky, algae-filled Mediterranean waves. For Goddio and his team, that precise moment was like violently ripping open a massive vault, a historical door that had remained heavily locked and sealed for thousands of dark, silent years. They discovered perfectly preserved, inscribed stone stelae that absolutely confirmed the legendary city's true existence. They found colossal, deeply carved statues of ancient pharaohs standing several meters tall in the dark water. Massive, highly polished inscribed stone slabs, thousands of ancient gold coins, and the heavy foundations of enormous temples. Even more terrifying, they found dozens of massive, ancient merchant shipwrecks violently scattered throughout the muddy area. Everything they pulled from the dark water aggressively confirmed that Thonis-Heracleion had truly physically existed. Advanced geophysical sonar surveys quickly indicated that this ancient, sunken urban center was unfathomably massive, extending across a vast, sprawling area of the ancient, heavily flooded Nile Delta. If this incredible city was so wealthy, so heavily fortified, and so structurally massive, why did it disappear so completely? For a very long time, many conservative historians believed that the sole cause was simply a slow, gradual rise in sea levels. However, geological core samples eventually revealed that what actually happened was far more violent and terrifying. Thonis-Heracleion was deliberately built upon the incredibly soft, unstable, water-saturated clay sediments of the Nile Delta. Under normal, calm environmental conditions, this compacted ground was just stable enough to support massive stone structures. But when deep, highly violent tectonic earthquakes suddenly struck the Mediterranean basin, the heavily water-saturated clay layers deep beneath the massive city completely lost their physical ability to bear weight. Through a terrifying, highly destructive geological process that modern seismologists call soil liquefaction, the intense, rapid shaking essentially transformed the solid ground directly into a deep, liquid-like unstable mud. That means the very foundation of the city violently, and suddenly vanished directly beneath the feet of its terrified inhabitants. Massive, multi-ton stone temples and towering monuments did not slowly crumble over centuries. They rapidly sank, entirely intact, straight down into the liquefied, muddy earth in a matter of catastrophic minutes. Geological studies strongly show that the region experienced multiple, severe earthquakes and massive tectonic subsidence, particularly during the chaotic, highly unstable late Roman period, which ultimately sealed the city's dark fate. But what makes this disaster so incredibly haunting for modern underwater archaeologists? Is that because the city sank straight down into the liquefied mud, rather than being toppled by waves? So many highly valuable, massive artifacts remain standing exactly where they were originally placed thousands of years ago. Giant stone pharaohs still stand proudly upright, completely surrounded by deep dark ocean water and thick algae, preserved in a terrifying, silent snapshot of absolute sudden geological destruction. But have we truly understood the full, massive scale of this swallowed metropolis? Today, after more than 2 decades of intense, highly funded continuous underwater excavation, archaeologists shockingly estimate that only about 5 to 10% of the entire site has been uncovered. In other words, the vast, overwhelming majority of Thonis-Heracleion still lies completely hidden, deeply buried beneath the thick, suffocating mud and dark waters of the unforgiving Mediterranean Sea. A massive, sleeping giant holding thousands of untold secrets about the true capabilities of the ancient world. It is highly possible that future, deeper discoveries will force us to completely rewrite our understanding of ancient engineering. The sunken city of Thonis-Heracleion fundamentally astonishes us with a terrifying, undeniable truth. Even the wealthiest, most heavily fortified metropolis can be swallowed whole if the very earth beneath it decides to turn to liquid. No amount of gold, massive stone walls, or powerful fleets can stop the sheer crushing power of planetary geology. But while Thonis-Heracleion sank into the dark, watery abyss, our next journey takes us in the exact opposite direction, to a place so incredibly high in the freezing mountains that it seems impossible for any advanced civilization to have survived there, where massive stone blocks were cut with a precision that still completely baffles modern engineers today. Welcome to Tiwanaku and the legendary mind-bending stone ruins of Puma Punku in modern-day Bolivia. This time, the historical mystery does not lie buried beneath the dark, heavy ocean. It lies exposed more than 3,800 meters above sea level, high in the freezing, thin air of the Andes. From the very first glance, the archaeological site feels deeply, fundamentally unusual and completely out of place. Not merely because of its immense, towering physical size, but because of its almost unimaginable, terrifying precision. The massive, incredibly heavy andesite and sandstone blocks at Puma Punku were cut with nearly perfect, razor-sharp right angles. Many of the massive stone surfaces are so completely flat that when measured with modern laser tools, the margin of error is only a few microscopic millimeters, a level of astonishing engineering perfection that still completely amazes and confuses modern architects today. Archaeological research shows that the sprawling Tiwanaku Empire was the most powerful, dominant center in the entire Andes, from approximately 500 to 1000 Common Era, controlling a vast, highly organized, high-altitude territory. At its absolute peak, its intense political and religious influence extended across much of present-day Bolivia and spread aggressively into the rugged terrains of Peru, Chile, and northern Argentina. The dense, bustling population of its massive core urban region may have easily reached tens of thousands of people, constructing towering step pyramids and highly advanced, complex agricultural systems capable of resisting both deep frost and severe drought. Long before modern European archaeologists ever arrived at this freezing, high-altitude plateau, the indigenous Aymara people passed down strange, haunting oral traditions about the origins of Tiwanaku. According to some deeply held local traditions, this was the exact sacred place where the gods created the world, after an ancient, devastating great flood had wiped the earth clean. They told powerful stories of the supreme creator god Viracocha, emerging from the freezing sacred waters of Lake Titicaca, to create the blazing sun, the silver moon, and the very first human beings from stone. In the deep popular memory of the Andes, the enormous, impossibly heavy stone blocks of Puma Punku were absolutely not built by mortal human hands, but were effortlessly lifted into place by the raw power of gods from a lost age. Of course, modern science treats this as pure mythological storytelling, not literal historical fact. Yet, what is truly remarkable is that these stories of impossible stone moving existed for centuries before anyone tried to scientifically explain the ruins. Puma Punku appears to have been the absolute greatest engineering achievement of this intensely organized mountain civilization. Some of the massive, perfectly cut stone blocks here weigh anywhere from several dozen to more than 100 tons. What makes this even more baffling is that the primary stone sources were located many kilometers away from the construction site, and some specific building materials have been directly traced to heavy quarries tens of kilometers away, requiring the transport of massive 100-ton stones across incredibly rugged, steep, and treacherous mountain terrain without the wheel. There is absolutely no physical evidence that they possessed technology beyond the basic capabilities of ancient humans. Yet literally no one has fully conclusively explained the entire physical process of transportation and final assembly. The next terrifying mystery becomes immediately apparent when looking at Puma Punku in its present, devastated state. Visitors absolutely do not see an intact, beautifully preserved ancient monument standing proudly in the sun. They see enormous, 100-ton stone blocks violently scattered across the barren landscape in total, chaotic ruin. Many incredibly thick stones are violently broken, and massive structures have been aggressively displaced from their original foundational positions. Some giant boulders physically appear as though they were picked up and violently thrown by an immense explosive force. For centuries, this chaotic destruction led many explorers to firmly believe that the site had experienced a sudden, catastrophic disaster. But deep sediment core data extracted from Lake Titicaca indicate that the region actually experienced a severe, prolonged dry period. A brutal, suffocating drought lasting several decades around the 10th century, slowly starving the mighty empire. But if a slow drought alone was the sole cause of their painful decline, why do so many massive, heavy structures at Puma Punku appear to have been destroyed violently and suddenly, rather than simply deteriorating gradually and peacefully over time as the city was slowly abandoned? The mystery of Puma Punku remains locked in stone, but the next lost civilization brings us to an even greater sociological paradox. A massive, highly advanced society that possessed systems of urban planning, water management, and standardized construction that were quite literally thousands of years ahead of most of the ancient world. This was the mighty Indus Valley civilization, widely recognized as one of the greatest cradles of human history, existing concurrently with the legendary empires of ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia. At its absolute peak, around 4,500 years ago, this highly organized civilization stretched across more than 1 million square kilometers, boasting dozens of incredibly advanced major cities and a thriving, bustling population that may have easily reached into the millions. Among this vast network, Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro proudly stood out as the two most prominent massive urban centers. Long before the rise of modern, systematic archaeology, local people were already deeply familiar with the enormous, dusty mounds, scattered widely across the vast, burning plains of the ancient Indus River. For generations, dark stories were quietly passed down, claiming that these were the cursed ruins of ancient cities severely punished by the gods. But what truly shocked veteran archaeologists when they finally excavated these buried cities in the 20th century was the undeniable discovery of a level of urban planning far, far beyond what had ever been expected from such an ancient society. Massive sprawling city streets were laid out in perfectly standardized, incredibly precise geometric grid patterns, and highly populated residential districts were organized systematically, anticipating modern city planning by millennia. Many private ancient homes actually contained dedicated indoor bathrooms and highly functional, clean drainage systems, directly connected to a massive network of underground brick sewers running continuously beneath the bustling city streets. But that incredible plumbing network was only the beginning of their terrifyingly consistent level of organization. Researchers quickly noticed that the millions of fired clay bricks used in Harappa, Mohenjo-Daro, and numerous other distant cities followed almost exactly the exact same dimensional mathematical proportions. Even though these ancient cities were physically separated by hundreds, and sometimes thousands of treacherous kilometers, their building bricks were manufactured according to a strictly standardized 4:2:1 ratio with astonishing factory-like consistency. And then, the true, profound mystery of the Indus Valley begins to slowly emerge from the perfectly aligned bricks. In almost all other ancient civilizations, absolute political power was aggressively expressed through enormous palaces or grand towering tombs. Yet in Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro, such massive traces of concentrated dictatorial power are almost entirely absent. And perhaps the most fundamentally astonishing and frustrating fact of all is that the brilliant people of the Indus Valley possessed their own highly complex, beautiful writing system. Inscribed perfectly on thousands of small clay seals, broken pottery fragments, and other ancient, dusty artifacts. Yet after more than a century of intense, dedicated research by the world's top linguists and supercomputers, we have still been completely, utterly unable to decipher a single word of their ancient language. Then, around 1900 before Common Era, an irreversible, deeply mysterious decline suddenly began. These perfect cities were gradually, silently abandoned, populations fell dramatically, and a massive civilization completely vanished from the stage of history. If the brilliant people of the Indus Valley deeply astonish us with their flawless ability to systematically organize society, then our next lost civilization presents an even more puzzling, highly frustrating engineering question. Why would a primitive people who possessed absolutely no wagons, no wheels, and no large draft animals aggressively build perfectly straight, massive roads stretching for hundreds of kilometers across burning deserts and rugged canyons? We travel now to Chaco Canyon, located deep in present-day New Mexico, an incredibly dry, desolate, and unforgiving valley located in the harsh desert region of the American Southwest. At first glance, it hardly seems like a geographical place capable of ever becoming the powerful center of any major civilization. The environment is brutal, surface water is extremely scarce, and the summer sun is absolutely merciless. Yet it was exactly here, between approximately 850 and 1150 Common Era, that the ancient Pueblo people proudly created one of the most highly impressive cultural and engineering centers in all of North America. What is fascinating is that long before modern archaeologists began intensely studying the arid region, modern Pueblo communities fiercely preserved many sacred, highly detailed oral stories about the ancient canyon. In some deep tribal traditions, this harsh land is remembered as an ultimate sacred gathering place, where thousands of ancestors congregated to perform massive ceremonies designed to connect fragile humanity directly with the sky. Many beautiful stories describe ancient, highly intelligent people who could read the complex movements of the moon and the stars, allowing them to strictly determine the exact proper times for vital planting, massive pilgrimage, and highly important religious ceremonies. The absolute crown jewel of this desert empire was a massive, sprawling complex known today as Pueblo Bonito. Yet that simple name hardly captures its true, terrifyingly massive architectural scale. Pueblo Bonito contains more than 600 heavily reinforced rooms, extending over multiple towering stories, and was meticulously built using hundreds of thousands of hand-cut, perfectly stacked heavy sandstone blocks. All of this was accomplished entirely by intense human muscle power, without the aid of any beasts of burden. But that incredible structural achievement is only the beginning of the Chaco Canyon mystery. As researchers examined the site much more closely, they quickly realized that Chaco Canyon was not simply a large residential settlement. It physically appears to have been the undisputed, dominant center of an immense, highly organized regional system. From the air, aerial archaeologists discovered numerous ancient, perfectly straight roads radiating aggressively outward from Chaco, looking exactly like the massive, highly organized spokes of a giant desert wheel. Some of these incredible routes were as wide as 9 meters, while others stretched completely straight for dozens, even hundreds of kilometers. Viewed from high above, they physically resemble gigantic, precise lines drawn aggressively across the rugged landscape with a ruler, completely ignoring massive physical obstacles, climbing straight up steep, dangerous cliffs instead of going around them. Some researchers strongly believe they may have served highly sacred ceremonial or religious purposes rather than simple trade, while others vehemently argue that they physically reflect a vast, intimidating network of political power and massive pilgrimage. And the historical mystery grows even deeper because Chaco Canyon appears to have been built upon an astonishing, highly advanced understanding of astronomy. Many massive structures are perfectly, precisely aligned with the exact sunrise and sunset positions of the sun, specifically tracking its extreme movements during the vital summer and winter solstices and equinoxes. Even more terrifying, some distinct architectural features correspond perfectly to highly complex lunar cycles that last precisely 18.6 years. A level of deep astronomical observation that requires multiple generations of intense, mathematically precise record-keeping. For several centuries, Chaco Canyon heavily flourished and completely dominated the desert. Massive amounts of heavy timber were manually transported from high-altitude forests located dozens of kilometers away. Incredibly rare, exotic luxury goods from distant Mexico, including scarlet macaw feathers, loud copper bells, and precious cacao beans, continuously flowed into the wealthy desert canyon along the massive road network. Then, suddenly, violently, and without mercy, everything began to dramatically change. Around the chaotic 12th century, the previously stable regional climate became highly unpredictable and incredibly harsh. Data extracted directly from ancient sensitive tree rings revealed that a severe, deeply devastating megadrought struck the region. A catastrophic lack of rain that lasted for punishing, relentless decades, slowly turning the desert into an absolute inferno. Vital agricultural crops completely failed year after year, and precious water supplies rapidly and terrifyingly declined. Intense social and psychological pressures increased exponentially as the once powerful religious leaders failed to bring the rain. When modern archaeologists began to carefully excavate late-period Chaco sites, they discovered a truly horrifying picture of societal collapse. They found undeniable, dark evidence of heavily burned defensive structures and massively fortified doorways. Increasingly terrifying signs of brutal physical violence, desperately cracked bones, and chaotic mass burials in certain restricted areas. These are the absolute undeniable physical indications of a highly organized society experiencing a profound, uncontrollable internal crisis. What exactly happened in those final desperate years? Some leading scholars argue that this extreme violence was the direct consequence of Chaco Canyon's highly rigid religious system failing, resulting in brutal, bloody uprisings and civil war during a prolonged, inescapable environmental disaster. Others suggest that desperate populations simply began aggressively migrating away from the center of power on a massive scale, fleeing the dying canyon in a desperate search for stable water and fertile soil before starvation took them all. What is truly remarkable, however, is that the brilliant ancient Pueblo people did not completely and utterly disappear. Their deeply resilient descendants still proudly exist today in highly vibrant communities across the American Southwest. For that reason, Chaco Canyon is absolutely not simply the tragic story of an abandoned, dead city. It is the haunting story of an incredibly advanced society that possessed extraordinary astronomical knowledge, unbelievable engineering skill, and a terrifying level of organizational abilities. Yet ultimately, despite all their deep knowledge of the stars and the seasons, they could not escape catastrophic climate collapse. No amount of perfect architectural alignment could force the dark rain clouds to form over the burning desert. The massive, perfectly straight roads of Chaco Canyon now lead only into the silent, dusty ruins of a fallen empire, leaving behind a profound, terrifying lesson about the absolute fragility of even the most organized human societies. But what happens when an incredibly powerful maritime empire actually sees a massive natural disaster rapidly approaching? When they possess the ships, the wealth, and the advanced technology to potentially escape the apocalypse. Yet human history and sheer geological violence still cannot save them from total, absolute disappearance. To find the final terrifying answer to this question, we must travel deeply back in time, roughly 4,000 years ago, to the beautiful, highly strategic island of Crete, located directly in the heart of the Mediterranean. Here once proudly existed the magnificent Minoan civilization, widely regarded by many modern historians as the absolute first highly advanced civilization of the European continent. A civilization so incredibly wealthy and artistically beautiful that its violent end inspired the darkest myths of ancient Greece. But the Minoans were not destroyed by a slow, creeping drought or a simple change in river currents. They were aggressively targeted by one of the most violent, explosive geological forces the Earth has ever unleashed. A disaster so massive, it literally ripped an entire island completely in half. The deeply unsettling mystery of the ash-covered city of Akrotiri tells a chilling story of a society that somehow knew exactly what was coming. Archaeologists found absolutely no human bodies trapped in the sudden, violent ashfall, unlike the tragic victims of Pompeii. The entire, massive population of the bustling city appears to have successfully evacuated before the apocalyptic disaster finally struck. But how could they have possibly survived? And what ultimately happened to the magnificent Minoan Empire? Some leading geologists hypothesize that the colossal tsunamis completely destroyed the vast Minoan merchant fleet in a single, devastating day, instantly severing the vital economic and trade network that served as the absolute backbone of the powerful maritime empire. Another terrifying hypothesis argues that years of massive crop failures, directly caused by the thick atmospheric ash blocking the sun, triggered a prolonged, inescapable crisis of starvation and social collapse across the entire Mediterranean region. What makes the Minoan story so incredibly haunting is that they were absolutely not a primitive or backward civilization. They possessed highly advanced technology, had the distinct intellectual ability to closely observe the terrifying warning signs of nature, and actually seem to have successfully anticipated the volcanic apocalypse just in time to flee their beautiful city. But even then, despite all their wealth and advanced knowledge, they could not stop the total collapse of their entire civilization. Today, the brilliant, vibrant frescoes at Knossos still remain standing in the Mediterranean sun, while the invincible merchant ships that once completely dominated the known ancient world have completely vanished. The Minoans remind us that advanced technology cannot prevent geological destiny. But our final journey takes us to a place that completely shatters every single textbook definition of how human civilization even began. Because here, highly confused archaeologists found a massive, highly complex stone structure built exactly 11,600 years ago, at a deep prehistoric time when modern science firmly claimed that humans were still merely wandering bands of primitive hunter-gatherers. Yet, someone deliberately raised massive, intricately carved stone pillars weighing dozens of tons, arranged them in highly complex, mathematically precise geometric patterns, and then, most confusingly of all, deliberately and painstakingly buried the entire massive structure deep underground. That is the absolute mind-bending mystery called Göbekli Tepe, located in modern-day Turkey. In 1994, when German archaeologist Klaus Schmidt began intensely studying a strange rocky hill in southeastern Turkey, the entire established timeline of human history began to violently shake. Excavations slowly revealed that hidden deeply beneath the soil were enormous, monumental stone structures, accurately carbon dating to around 9,600 before Common Era, making them approximately 6,000 years older than the legendary stone circle of Stonehenge, and an impossible 7,000 years older than the Great Pyramids of Egypt. From the earliest years of his intense research, Klaus Schmidt realized that he was standing before something entirely extraordinary. He famously declared that at Göbekli Tepe, first came the massive temple and only then came the city. It was not merely a striking poetic phrase, but a direct, fundamental challenge to the way we have long understood the birth of civilization. According to the traditional historical view, primitive humans first had to settle down, develop stable agriculture, and form permanent villages. And only then, after securing survival, could they possibly build massive religious centers. But Göbekli Tepe seems to be telling the epic human story in the exact opposite direction. What was discovered here completely stunned the global archaeological world. Dozens of massive T-shaped limestone pillars rising from 3 to more than 5 meters tall. Some of these incredibly heavy stones weighing between 10 and 20 tons, perfectly arranged into massive, precise circles and highly complex, deeply spiritual ritual areas. On the smooth surfaces of the ancient stones are exquisitely carved, highly detailed high-relief sculptures. Fierce lions, cunning foxes, venomous snakes, deadly scorpions, and scavenging vultures. All of them are depicted with an astonishing artistic skill and deep biological understanding, far beyond what modern scientists once imagined was possible for deep prehistory. But the true ultimate mystery of Göbekli Tepe lies directly in exactly how it ended. Unlike coastal cities violently swallowed by the sea or massive empires erased by brutal earthquakes or exploding volcanoes, Göbekli Tepe does not physically appear to have been destroyed by any natural disaster or conquering army. In almost all of the excavated circular areas, deeply confused archaeologists found that the massive stone circles had been meticulously filled in and covered with thousands of cubic meters of heavy earth, stone, and animal debris. Some researchers believe that rapid, profound social and religious changes caused the sacred site to suddenly lose its central role. Others argue that the incredibly labor-intensive burial may have actually been a highly sacred, required ritual, deliberately meant to formally and respectfully close the life cycle of the massive, sacred monument. There are also much bolder, highly controversial scientific hypotheses suggesting a massive climate connection, that a major violent climate event at the very end of the freezing Younger Dryas period triggered incredibly deep social changes, aggressively forcing the hunter-gatherer communities here to completely reorganize their survival strategy. We have currently seen only a very small, incredibly tiny portion of this massive, sprawling ancient site. Advanced geophysical ground-penetrating radar surveys clearly show that most of Göbekli Tepe still lies completely hidden beneath the rocky ground, waiting silently in the dark. What has been painstakingly excavated so far is only a small part of a much larger, impossibly massive underground complex, and the shocking discoveries that have already shaken the world may literally be only the very tip of the historical iceberg. After decades of intense, dedicated research, the more global scientists excavate these ancient ruins, the more they deeply realize exactly how little they truly know about our own origins. Göbekli Tepe absolutely does not prove the wild existence of a super-technological alien civilization or confirm purely mystical theories. It physically proves something far more important and far more terrifying for us today. Human history is infinitely much more complex than the simple, linear stories we often tell ourselves. Massive, highly advanced cities that once teemed with vibrant life can completely disappear beneath the sea in a single day. Incredibly wealthy, heavily fortified empires that once completely dominated the known world can brutally dissolve within just a few short generations. And profound, highly advanced architectural knowledge, once considered completely obvious, can remain deeply buried in the dirt for thousands of years. And when that terrifying day comes, the comfortable history we firmly believe in today may have to be violently and completely rewritten once again. The sudden, catastrophic disappearance of these advanced ancient civilizations was not merely the tragic end of a forgotten dynasty. It remains an unresolved, terrifying scientific paradox. These completely silent, ruined places stand as undeniable, living physical evidence of the absolute limits of human sustainability. When we directly confront these dark, mysterious gaps in our own history, the greatest, most important lesson they leave for the modern world is a very serious, terrifying warning. The ultimate survival of any advanced civilization is never determined solely by its massive material power in the present. but by its absolute ability to adapt to a violent, unforgiving universe that is constantly, ruthlessly changing. Thank you for watching, and make sure to subscribe to Survival Geography.